Questions 9 through 12 refer to the following possible relationships between organisms and an ecosystem. A. Commensalism, B. Parasitism, C. Mutualism, D. Predation, and E. Competition. So in this question, we're asked to map 4 of these different relationships between organisms to the 4 questions down here. So to begin with, let's define each of these terms or relationships. So A. Commensalism. This is a relationship between organisms where one of the organisms benefits and the other is neither benefited or harmed. So let's just call that unharmed. So one of the organisms benefits and the other has no benefit or no negative. B. Parasitism. This is rather self-explanatory because parasitism relates to parasites, and in this case one of the organisms benefits and the other is harmed. C. Mutualism. This is another relationship, and in this case, both organisms benefits. So there'd be one of the organisms benefits, and the other organism benefits as well. And D. Predation. This is simply the predator and prey relationship. So this is either self-explanatory. And E. Competition. This is simply two organisms competing with each other. Now let's look at these answer choices. 9. Exemplified by ticks feeding on a deer. So if ticks are feeding on a deer, then the ticks are obviously benefiting by feeding on the deer. The deer is obviously being harmed because there are ticks feeding on it. Therefore, this describes the relationship of parasitism, because one of the organisms is benefiting while the other is being harmed. So question 9 would map to option choice B. 10. Exemplified by starlings displacing bluebirds from nesting sites. So in this case, the starlings, we'll assume is some sort of bird, displacing bluebirds, another bird, from nesting sites. So there are two birds fighting over this nesting sites. So thinking about this for a second, we can clearly see that this is competition, because there are two birds and they're fighting over, they're competing over this nesting sites, which describes competition. 11. Exemplified by bees consuming nectar and carrying pollen from one flower to another. So bees consuming nectar, the bees are obviously being benefited here because they get to eat or to get some sort of food, and then carrying pollen from one flower to another. So this benefits the flower as well because they get to spread their pollen to other flowers, thereby reproducing. So in this case, both organisms are benefiting, where the bees get to eat food or consume food, and the pollens get to flowers get to spread their pollen. So because both organisms are benefiting in this case, this would map to mutualism, where both organisms benefit in a relationship. So this would relate to C. 12. Exemplified by moss growing on a tree trunk in a forest. So moss growing on a tree trunk in a forest, this moss benefits because it gets to grow on a tree trunk. The tree trunk isn't really harmed or benefited because the moss isn't really doing anything that hurts the tree trunk. So in this case, this would map to commensalism, where one of the organisms benefits and the other is unharmed, where they have no benefit or no negative. So 12 would map to answer choice A. So questions 9 through 12, the answers are B, E, C, and A.